The federal government and the International Monetary Fund are not on the same page as per Nigeria's economic outlook for 2019. They have both put forward varying figures in rating Nigeria's economic growth.
Well, while the IMF announced a downward review of its growth forecast for Nigeria's economy to 2.0% from 2.3% for 2019, citing decline in crude oil prices, the federal government says the nation's economy will grow by 3.01% this year. Well, the fund had in October of 2018 projected a 2.3% growth rate for the Nigerian economy, but cut down the figure, stating that the economy would expand more slowly in 2019 than previously predicted.
Now, but Minister of Budget and National Planning, Udo Udoma, says the proposed 2019 budget, when passed, will reposition the economy on the path of faster, inclusive, diversified and sustainable growth, as well as to continue to lift significant numbers of Nigerians out of poverty.
Okay, we have in the studio an economist, Tokwe Fasua. Good morning and good to see you.
Good morning.
On the show.
Good morning.
Great to be
Nice
here.
to see you.
Ordinarily, you would be discussing politics, but you're here to talk
So
the
you
economy.
removed my political hat.
Yes,
And kept your economic self.
All right, I'm fine with that. Let's see how it goes.
Okay, so on the one hand, the federal government is saying, no, we're growing by 3.01%, while the IMF is saying otherwise. As a matter of fact, they've downgraded it from 2.3% to 2.0. Now, number one, how reliable really are these projections by the global,
Not
these
reliable.
institutions?
As a matter of fact, it's a bit of, I always say that it has some sort of hypnotic effect. Like how people will say, when you have a child and you go to your neighbor to name the child for you, right? They are going to actually name that child after all of those things that you wish to forget. They're going to remember that your ancestors were drummers or were hunters or something or the other. But if you name the child yourself, you call it a very lovely name. If you were Yoruba, you'll be calling Olanrewaju, that kind of stuff. But if you went to your neighbor, they'll tell you that, wow, this is Egunjobi. This person looks like the masquerade, that your father used to. So why do we have to go to the IMF to get our growth projection? I'm right at the forefront of this discussion, and I'm one of the people, okay, putting the federal government under pressure to look at those growth rates, to look at the growth rate of this economy, to look at even our budgeting, to begin to get them to think differently, apart from the fact that I'm running for president, but also to say that whether I'm in Aso Villa or not, things have to begin to change. And I've been on the street 4 times demonstrating on the streets in Ministry of Budget, Ministry of Finance and National Assembly, and we'll continue to do that. So the IMF or World Bank cannot know Nigeria more than Nigerians can know Nigeria.
But they have economic mechanisms.
They do. Well, we can study. How well honed are those economic? It's a lot of assumptions. I'm an economist. And, when they do some of these things, they have to assume. They have to assume and project that, okay, this is what we do. It's becoming a joke. Because again, I personally believe that Nigeria's economy should be growing at double digit, at least 15%. That's what we should set that target at 15%. If we can make 10 or 12%, good enough.
But that would depend on if the foundations are there.
The foundations are there. As a matter of fact, the point is that let me tell you this. Nigeria's economy is like a toddler, right? As economies are concerned. Even if you look at it, let's even excuse all our corruption and mismanagement and all of that. We're 58 years old or 59. Getting on for 59. However, we seem to be like a 59 years old person who is stuck in primary school. A country should grow from primary products to secondary products to tertiary products. We're still doing that primary product, selling crude oil, selling cocoa and all of that. But what you notice is that a young country, at least relatively young country like ours, should be growing a lot faster. The other time, I got a whim, just a whiff of inspiration. And I went on and tried to check GDP growth for the USA, historical, and I chose maximum. All right, anybody that can go on and just check USA GDP growth historical. And then when you get to trading economics or whatever, you just click on maximum. You find out that the US economy was growing around the 50s and 60s, was growing at 12%, 15% in some years. And I went and did the same for the UK. I found out they were growing at 10%. at 12% around the 60s and 70s. That's the kind of target you should be setting for us. And then these guys come and say, you can't grow for more than 2%, you know. And here we are. We've been always going along with that. I even had an argument on this with Obieze Kwesili in one of the forums that we were. And I said, look, we should be growing at 15%. And she said, oh, no, if we can manage 6%. I said, no. We can do a lot better than this.
There was a time when the Nigerian economy was growing at 6%.
Exactly. Mind you, of course, that when we're talking about growth, it's different from development. And you can have a lot of growth. You know, the problem with GDP growth and economic growth as we discuss it right now is because it's just a GDP phenomenon. You know, if one sector of the economy grows or a few people in the economy make a lot of money, the GDP will grow. But doesn't mean that many more people have not become poor. You know what I'm saying? So I think that what we should be doing is setting our growth targets a lot higher, because we need to understand that Nigeria's economy is an unbuilt economy, and someone has to build the economy, and we have the capacity to build our economy. It's about getting more people to work.
And that is part of your personal agenda when it comes to building the economy. Now, when the minister or the government of Nigeria is projecting the GDP to grow by 3.1 or 3.01%, do you fault that? Because when you say the ones by IMF and the others are assumptions,
absolutely. Those ones are
how realistic are the ones by Nigeria?
Quite insulting. You know what I'm saying? If you look at us, what they're saying, and I've said this so many times, that what they're saying by saying that you cannot grow more than 2% is to say, in other words, that we are not going to think differently as a people.
In other words, they're putting a cap on how far we can grow. It's
kind of hypnotic. Okay. I tell you, look, you guys, we don't think you're going to be thinking differently. We think you're going to continue to be mediocre.
But has Nigeria or even Nigerians, you know, come up with anything to make them think differently?
Listen, we are the people we've been waiting for. You know, some of the programs you do every day, you know, you talk about the economy and all of that. You're sensitizing people. People are, look, I personally, I'm going to take a bit of glory for that. That I wrote petitions to President Buhari, to everybody, to the Senate President on this issue of economic growth. And I said, guys, we can be thinking otherwise. Even they weren't thinking of 3.0%. I saw when the Minister of Budget said a week ago that, no, even I think it was Ben Akabweze, the DG budget, that look, that the discussion should not be that we cannot grow at 3.1%. He said the discussion should be that we should be growing at double digit. That is the argument we should be having. That is my argument. I'm the only presidential candidate that is discussing that issue.
How realistic is that argument?
Oh, it is actually.
The Nigerian government,
okay, let me give you an
really
example.
Should higher.
Let me,
What
parameters?
In laying out the budget, for example, it's based on assumptions.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And all of that.
The assumptions on the budget are too pedestrian. Usually, the problem with the budget is that the only key assumption in that budget is crude oil price, $60, daily production 2.3 million barrels
per day.
And that's it. Everybody goes to sleep. Basically, that's... Now, what you will do, for example, TVC now, if TVC would plan its budget, you say, okay, how much can we get from sales department? How much can we get from advertising? How much can we get from this, whatever? How much can we get from doing supplements for people? So you populate it all, everywhere you can make money. And the MD or the chairman of TVC will be thinking, listen, he's not going to take no for an answer. One of the problems I had with the government recently is that they reduced the budget from last year to this year, from 9.1 trillion to 8.8 trillion. And I'm asking them, listen, the population has grown by 3% or 3.2%. You know, that means that about 5 million mouths have been added to the people you need to provide for. On what basis are you reducing the budget? Apart from that, inflation is 11.4%, 11.44%. And, you know, that means that the value of money from last year to this year has reduced. And in meaning that effectively what your budget is about 7 trillion naira, which is not good enough.
And in reaching, in getting to this, in getting to the 3.01% that government is saying, it's saying that there's a convergence between the monetary and the fiscal policy. Do you agree with that?
Not yet. There isn't a look, I think we've actually shot all our monetary policy bullets right now. You can see that for the past almost 10 to 12 meetings of the MPC, they have remained where they are. And then you begin to wonder, you know, why are we not doing something about this? But there's a limit to how monetary policy can take a country like ours forward. The leakage is from the fiscal side. All right, so you see a scenario where we're not getting the bang for the buck as we should. Value for money in Nigeria is still about, in government procurement, it's still about 30%. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of reform that needs to be done in that area. Fiscal,
like what?
We haven't started. For example, we should be talking of reduction in the cost of governance, for example. The first time I wrote on this, the Minister of Budget also said that in 2019, they will not be entertaining all of these things like purchase of luxury cars for themselves that usually happens every day. Let me quickly say that India is growing at 8.5%. India is a 2.5 trillion economy, overtook the UK economy.
Yeah.
But it's growing at 8.5%, projected to grow at 8.5% up to 2022. We can grow at 15% because what it means is essentially that all of us can be 15% more productive. That's what it means. You know what I'm saying? So that you can earn 15% more money. And that would be lovely, wouldn't it? You know
of
what
course,
I'm saying?
that would be very interesting.
Guys are looking for 100% more money. So, but if we all earn 15% more money in this country, and companies earn 15% more profit, and everybody, that is 15% growth. So we need to move away from this mediocre way of thinking. Oh my God! I mean, we should never, ever. We're very aspirational people. We should never ever buy that idea that look, no, don't worry, you're going to be crawling. No, we don't crawl about
with the
stuff. We should be running
monoproduct economy that
Absolutely.
really has not diversified
exactly
its
my
revenue,
point.
its revenue sources.
Exactly my point. That remember what I said, that look, the only key assumption in the budget is crude oil, right? Listen, I did a research and found out that palm oil actually is worth about 4 times crude oil. When you look at $60, right? At $60 multiplied by 305, that's 18,300 divided by 159. Because 159 liters is inside 1 barrel, you find out that 1 liter of crude oil is 115 naira. If you went on the street now and buy one liter of palm oil is at least 600 naira. You know what I'm saying? So you have palm oil. Meanwhile,
it's actually more than that.
Same palm oil,
it's about 1,500.
Meanwhile, this same palm oil, yes, even I bought it on the road in all of those villages around Ibilu and it was like maybe 2,000 naira or 2,200 naira. So I said, wow, meanwhile, this same palm oil we have been selling to Portuguese people since 1400. I went and did the research and I found why Indonesia and Malaysia, they came to this country, they came to Africa. It was in the early 1900s, took the seeds, and today, you know what? They're producing 25 times, each of them. They produce 25 billion liters of crude oil, of palm oil every year. And they still have crude oil. You know what I'm saying? Like I say, we can walk and chew gum. I think that this laziness, of course, recently, that the president was in Bauchi commissioning some new oil or whatever. I don't believe we should be chasing this oil because, again, we have no input in the production of crude oil. And it's just about extracting from the floor, from the ground, without thinking about the environmental impact of it. I think we have so many more things we can say. Palm oil inclusive.
Yeah, exactly.
So many things that we can say.
I like the way you put it, that we can walk.
You just gave Mike an idea of what to do after the day.
The palm oil. Obviously, you have a palm oil plantation. Take that palm oil plantation very serious.
She's giving me a hint.
You know what they did with palm oil in Malaysia and Indonesia? They took it to the exchange. They have derivative products, they're selling financial products based on palm oil. The entire chain and everything in palm oil is useful.
Let me ask you this question before we go. I like the way you put it, like we can walk and chew gum.
At the same time, absolutely.
It's not a big deal. But the point there is, in all of the realities we have right now, you are looking forward to that platform where you are the one running things, running Nigeria, who takes that decision as the president, for instance.
I'm not waiting for that.
Yeah,
I'm already making.
You're doing it already. Yeah. In fact, you're inspiring a lot of minds already. But as it is right now, what mechanism can be put in place in practical terms to take Nigeria to that level where we can grow at 15% or even 20% or even 18%, like you're projecting?
Right. Well, I would probably say that, the first thing I believe we should do, of course, about thinking, nothing has been achieved except to dream about it. So I said to them, listen, what we need to do now, let's reset our budgeting from this time on to 15 trillion naira. Number one. Number two, then we now go to the budget and say, okay, how do we get this money to fund this economy without having to go abroad to borrow the way they've been borrowing? I see a lot of laziness in that area, of course, and there are many people who are very interested in us remaining where we are. So when you now go back to that budget, that's where you now begin to say, okay, how do we make the money? Remember, like just as of December 31st, 2018, when the year was closing, around then, the budget DG said also that about 50 MDAs, Ministry, departments and agencies, were owing 2.8 trillion naira. However, as at that time, all that we had got also was 2.8 trillion naira. All right. So number one is to get very serious. And then he was saying that going forward, they will be benchmarking the DGs of each. That's what you ought to have been doing a long time ago. Benchmark them, get your money from them.
Give targets to each of them.
Give them targets.
Yeah.
If you don't meet a target, lose your shirt. That's the way we should be going. And I think that sometimes, we see a scenario where we're allowing them to get away with too many things. For example, the FRS made 5.3 trillion last year, and then they went to town and said, oh, we made so much money. But if you check it, because Nigeria devalued its currency in 2016, that 5.3 trillion in 2016 money is about 3 trillion naira. You know what I'm saying? So the same thing. So whether it's the custom, the MPA, the FRS, everything, give us our money. We shouldn't joke with our money. And then the FRS this year, last year, deducted 300 billion naira as cost of generating, which was almost double. Service. Yes, it was almost double what they collected the last year. Which so we need to get very serious. But we have money in this country. Let me also let you know that look, the budget of this country is 8.8 trillion. Divided by 305. To the dollar, it's about $28 billion, something like that. South Africa does about $150 billion every year in budget. The budget for the city of Cape Town alone, is doing about $3 billion. And they have less than 3 million people living in there. So, look, I'm coming with a vision. I know that Nigeria can be a lot more serious than it is. We should be a way up higher than we are, and all of this mediocre way of thinking has to give space to.
Wow, so much vibe, so much inspiration this morning, Tokwe Fashola.
Angola is doing double our budget for 25 million people. South Africa has 58 million to 60 million people, doing 6 times our budget. Algeria is doing about 4 times our budget. Egypt as well.
Oh wow!
So guys, you know what? I want you to take it as an agenda. Anybody that comes here, let us do the research. Let us get this country moving. And I've been all over the country. I've been to Boko Haram territory in the last 1 year. I mean, in the last 1 week or 2. There's so much need in this country. Our children should be living a better life than
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We can walk and chew gum. I will take that away from
something you need to take away.
Tokwe Fashola, economist. Thank you very much for talking to us this morning. It's really nice to see you.
Thank you very much.
Right.